A new suit.
Hmm?
Should you get that nice new suit?
Oh man,
Got that
everything new.
Got that nice suit. We wore that. We went down and attended that with him, and they honored him that night. We got the paperwork out. It was fantastic.
How fun.
And the Marines, as they do things, they do it right. And
Yeah.
they respect the tradition and the service, and they let them know that. And
I'll
then, right, Barry? Wasn't that
I'll
great?
tell you one thing. Those girls, those Marine girls. See, when I was in the Marines, we called them Marinettes. They ain't Marinettes no more. They're Marines.
Yeah.
I read it in the book.
Yeah.
They are Marines now.
And they honored you big time that night.
I got the
And then in finding out medals were lost or stolen.
and stolen.
Tell me about those medals. What happened to them?
Well, I don't rightly. I can't accuse nobody of doing anything. I'm not like that.
Right.
They disappeared, and that's it. I think more or less teenagers done it, but I couldn't swear to it.
Right, right.
So I just let it go at that and don't accuse nobody, and that way you don't have to argue with anybody.
That's right.
And,
You better shut it.
yeah,
They'll open it. The other one will open it. Tank will come in there.
they all should. I'll leave this here for now. Barry.
So,
I'll hang that
if
back.
you wouldn't mind, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and, you know, where you grew up and how long you've been in Mount Pleasant and how you decided to join the military?
Well, God, I don't even know how. You know, I think it was 1941 I was bat boy. You know what a bat boy is?
For a baseball team?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Guess what teams they were?
What team?
Boston Red Sox and Cincinnati Reds.
You're kidding.
They played here in College Park, here in Charleston, spring training. And I was bat boy for both teams. When one was in, I was in there picking up bats, and when they went out, I went to the other team. Well, I got to meet Ted Williams. And some of the other ones, Vince, what was his last name? DiMaggio. And
Dom?
Dominic and Vince. Vince too was there, I think. I'm pretty sure both of them, both brothers. The older brother was with the Yankees, Joe.
Joe, yes. Yeah.
And Jimmy Fox. I met Jimmy Fox. I was bat boy for Cincinnati. And my cousin was playing first base for Cincinnati.
What was his name?
His name was, see, if my name, I'm 86 and my brain slips.
That's all right. It's not that important. I just.
Anyway, he graduated from Duke University.
Mm-hmm.
He played semi-pro ball with my daddy, and my daddy was playing with True Blue Beer and Ale. And he was the first baseman for us. His last name was Shokes. I'm trying to think of his first name. The names have slipped me.
That's all right.
Eddie.
Eddie.
Shokes. Played first base for Daddy, for my daddy, on True Blue Beer and Ale, which was a brewery here in Charleston at that time.
Okay.
And I got to talk, me and cut up with Ted. He was a joker anyway, Ted Williams. He liked to joke. And I was just a kid, and he always rubbing my head and told me I was going to be a fine ball player. I told him, no, I'm going to be a Marine.
How old were you then, Barry?
I think I was 15 or 16. 15, I think. I was about 15. And we got joking. He said that he thought if the war went on, Ted Williams, then, if it goes any further, I'm going to quit playing ball and I'm going to go in the Marines myself. So we got to joking around about that, which really ended up me reading about reading about him, Ted going into the Marines as a pilot, and I was going into the Marines as a private
So Ted Williams, the greatest hitter in baseball at the time, at the prime of his career.
Yeah, it was a
Says,
prime
I'm gonna
of
go into the, I'm gonna
Oh.
go be a Marine instead of playing baseball.
That's right.
Because that's how much he
4
cared about his
years.
country.
He would have hit 400.
That's right.
4 years, he would have hit 400 each.
Can you
I
see-
mean, I'm praising somebody else and not myself, because I love Ted Williams. But I never got no more chance to see him at all. Before he died, I watched him on television a lot and cried at his illness he had and trying to get around in automobiles at the ballparks. And then I went in the Marines. And
Barry, one thing, there was a quote you told me the other day that right at that point, Ted Williams is talking to you at the ballpark. He said, you told him, you said, well, Ted, or Mr. Williams, whatever you call him.
yeah, I called him Ted.
Ted Williams says, I'm gonna go into the Marines if the war continues.
Yeah.
And you said, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna
That's
be a Marine.
exactly what
And he
I-
says, you better think carefully about that.
Yeah.
And you said, oh, I think about it every day.
All the time. I wanted to be a Marine. Ever since the Marines used to play ball and come down and, you know, from the Navy Yard had a Marine ball club, and so did Paris Island. And they used to come play with my daddy and them. And also over there on Fort Moultrie, the Army had a baseball team on Fort Moultrie, and we used to go across that old bridge
Huh.
over to Fort Moultrie to the ball game. And I was bat boy all the time.
So the Red Sox actually had spring training here? They had spring training right in Charleston at that time. The Red Sox.
No, they were going through,
Oh, going through, passing through.
and they were passing through.
I got you. Okay. Okay. All right. So then you joined the Marines.
And then I joined the Marines. And I'll never forget that drill instructor. He says, listen, you had a mama when you left home, and she's going to stay home. I'm going to be mama, and I'm going to be daddy. And if I say you got to go to the bathroom, you better squat, grunt, and groan. Now, I'll never forget them drill instructors, how they say that. And the first thing you're going to learn is the rifle number on your rifle, and you're going to know your serial number. Well, I already knew my serial number because I loved the Marine Corps. 544, 782. I knew that in Columbia, when I was sworn in Columbia, South Carolina. My daddy cried that day when he took me to the train station after I joined the Marines in Columbia, and I came back. And I was going to California, and he said, you got your ticket? I said, yeah, and I held it up. It was about a half a mile long. Train tickets and that. We used to have a train station
Oh.
downtown. It was pretty, too. And they tore it all up, modernizing. But anyway, I left him. He was crying. The first time I'd ever seen my daddy cry. And then I went on to Columbia. Picked up the rest of my gear that I left there, and they had a bus for me to go to the other train station, and that's my track all the way to California, and everything was beautiful. Every state I went through, I said, boy, I'm in another state. You know, I'm just a happy kid.
First time you'd gone away, Barry?
Hmm?
First time away?
First time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was my first time out of South Carolina.
16?
Hmm.
16 years old.
Yeah,
Wow.
Do you remember what year that was?
1943, when I went in the Marines.
Okay. And so from California, what happened?
That's when that drill instructor met us at the train station and fall in. Well, I already knew how to do all that because I was raised around Marines. I knew a lot more than some of the boots knew.
Mm-hmm.
And McClary was my drill instructor. I never knew his first name, but I remember him McClary. And I learned how to drill, but I already knew how to do that because I used to practice it.
How cute.
Because I wanted to be a Marine. I always wanted to be a Marine. Why? Because all the girls love Marines.
That's the truth.
That's true. The old saying then, If the Army and Navy ever gazed on heaven scenes, they'd find the angels in the arms of the U.S. Marines.
So, what was your service like? Where did they deploy you, and
Ma'am,
where were you deployed? How did all that work? From California.
from California, I had a 10-day leave, and I spent it in Iowa. Mondayman, Iowa. And then left there and went back to California and boarded a ship. No sooner we got there, pull your sea bag out. But everything was in that sea bag. I mean, you kept everything in the sea bag in them days. These days you don't do that. So anyway, I boarded the ship and went. I was notified that you are now in the 1st Marine Division. Well, the 1st Marine Division, there's a debate on that between the Marines and people that write up all this stuff like you doing right now.
Uh-huh.
That when you're in the division, you deserve everything the division wins. But I was in the 1st Division, and when they were going to put us in reserve. They were going to Peleliu. You know what Peleliu is?
No, sir.
Ma'am?
No, sir.
That's one of the worst battles in the Pacific. The Marines. Peleliu Island.
Yeah, I saw that at the museum there.
That was a bad one. Real bad. But I was in the division that was there in reserve in case they needed us. We would have went ashore, but they didn't need us, so we went on to Pavuvu. Their home base was Pavuvu. That was the name. Your wife, I think she looked that thing up to make sure I wasn't lying. P-A-V-O-V-O. I think that's the way you spell it. We never could write the name because they censored all our letters from there. Nobody knew where. It was just known as the Russell Islands.
The Russell Islands.
That was the way they were. He's in the Russell Islands. Well, that could be any place.
Right.
So anyway, we was deployed there and waited on them to come back. The ones that survived come back to their home base in Pavuvu, and they were put out because we was in their damn tents, and you know how Marines argue with each other, and like old brave Marine here, I tell them, well, if you don't like it, step out in the damn street just because you was at Peleliu. Don't think you're gonna run over me.
So
I stood up for the Marines, but I thought I'm a Marine too. Just remember that.
yeah,
We would have been there, but they didn't call us.
and I think most of the guys that fought in that battlefield died.
Yeah.
I think most died, didn't they? That was a brutal, yeah.
But anyway, we finally got along, and then I learned a lot from the Chief Thompson. He was an Indian, and I thought the world of him, and I lost contact with him after I got all messed up. But when we left there, we went to Guadalcanal for maneuvers to go to Okinawa, which we did not know yet it was Okinawa. It was just we was on maneuvers but I knew, and some of the other Marines knew because that was the last island in the Pacific. We knew where we were going. And if you know your history, that was the last battle at that time, the last one in World War II. At that time, they were planning though. Now my division, after I got shot, I was wounded. They wrote it up as shrapnel, which went on for 2 or 3 months as shrapnel. And then when I left, I think I got far behind. That was Guam Hospital.
Okay.
And the nurses there were terrific. You can put that because I won't, if any of them ever find out, they were terrific. They were the best nurses I ever was around. I mean, they were great. They wheeled you around, they brought you dinner. You didn't have to go hunt something. If you wanted something, they'd go get it for you. Nina would have made a good nurse.
I think you're right.
That's a terrific one. Have you met Nina?
No, I have not.
Oh.
She'll be, but she's walking down, Barry. She just wants to make sure so there's all the correct spelling.
No, I'm telling you, she's terrific. She's just like another mother to me. I mean, she wouldn't want me to say that, but she makes me do things I don't want to do.
Right.
She's very demanding. She don't think she is, but she is, ain't she?
Yeah, she does. She does.
That was
So
great.
when did you get shot, Barry? When did you
That
get
was
shot?
May the
And you were
16th,
in you were in Okinawa. Then.
Okinawa, May the 16th.
But you. But the,
And then I got on the way to I was
but you
being
skip-
evacuated.
But I think you skip on, Barry, when you got on Okinawa first during those battles,
Yeah.
this was intense stuff. I mean, guys were getting shot and killed
Oh.
constantly when you got off those boats to the beach.
See, the 1st Marine Division was on the right-hand side. The 6th Marine Division was on our left. We split the island. The Army was going to go down and take their part, and we went, well, we secured our end of the island, and the Army was still dilly-dallying around down there fighting. I don't like the Army. I mean, some of these fellas, I have to back up. I don't want to cause trouble with them. But that Army. So when we went back down there, that's when I was telling you about in the book. The book is all wrong.
Yeah,
This book is
it's fiction kind of.
it's wrong,
Yeah.
and they shouldn't even let him print a book like that. So when we come back to relieve the Army went where we already mopped up and secured. And we come back down there to fight where they couldn't fight. I mean, they just couldn't do nothing. Well, they never could do nothing. So
Tell it like it is, baby.
we went through Naha. That's when I found a Louisville Slugger baseball bat in the schoolhouse in the closet. Lou Gehrig baseball bat, Louisville Slugger. I told you about that.
So yeah, but this was one of the places of the Japanese you took over,
Yeah.
and when you take over, you can do what you need to do. And
See, we came
clean
back.
up. Yeah.
And that's back to Naha, and the capital of Okinawa was Naha. If I'm not mistaken.
I'll double check it.
So anyhow, that was sometime in April, the latter part of April. Don't forget now, when you hit Okinawa, it was Easter Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Because we was all saying, boy, look at all this fireworks up here. We could color eggs with this. There was them big old battleships we had was bellying out. I mean, this huge burst coming from them. And when we was going to show, and the LVTs, the flakes would fall out and fall on our jackets and burn. You had to keep putting them out from the flakes. And you couldn't even see the ship, but you could feel them flakes coming with the projectile out of them cannons they had on the board ship. There she comes.
Morning. Hi.
Morning.
Good. No.
You knew I would not be here.
How are you? I'm
Like,
Sully.
Nina Monty, nice to meet
see
you.
you too.
See what I mean?
I have to make sure the facts are right, Sully. These two could lead you down a bunny trail.
We just
I'm gonna open this so
Did y'all
Sully doesn't
know
pass out from the heat in
The
here.
news, excuse me, the news, Boston is really
with the flu.
with flu,
Yeah, I read that.
deaths,
Yeah, about 16.
16.
It's because they're all getting their flu shots.
No, I just thought I'd let you know. I'm glad y'all are down here, and I'm glad them two children, my godchildren, I call them my godchildren,
Oh, that's sweet.
and my sweethearts. Now, we're back at the,
So do you mind telling me a little bit more about when you were wounded, what was going on around you, and how did you get wounded?
well, there was a kid in the Marines with me, and he was in the infantry, which we laid down support for. I was in Regimental Weapons 7th. His name was Gene Veard. I don't know how you spell that last name, but he's here, and he lives in North Charleston if he ain't dead. I have never come in contact with him. But his mother and his sister came to visit me when I was in the hospital at Charleston Naval Hospital, which was in the Navy Yard at that time.
Wow.
It was the naval, and it was a good hospital. In fact, that's where the Marine Corps. When I was a kid, we used to go. My daddy never go to play. The Marines was right there.
Oh, wow.
That's why I knew so much about Marines. But anyhow, they all come to visit me when I had my knee operated on in the Charleston Naval Hospital.
That's nice.
And she told me then that Gene was still alive, and when the day I got hit with the shrapnel was they were bringing the wounded down over a path we'd already paved up going up over the hill, and we were down below the hill because the shell would have to fall straight down in there to get you. And that's what one did fall, and then I got the shrapnel. I got that the 16th of May, and then on the 17th of May, I was still hadn't. They were getting ready to evacuate me when another one went, and I got a hunk of shrapnel in my jaw.
Oh, no.
But I knew where that was. But the shrapnel that hit me here was supposed to be shrapnel
In your
in
back?
my right hip.
Oh, hip.
Now get that, because this is it's going to floor you. So after being evacuated from Okinawa to Guam, Fleet Hospital, 611. I think that's what 611 was. And then Salvation Army visit nurses. Well, they weren't nurses, but they did always brought you toothpaste, toothbrushes, whatever you needed. And I asked her, did she know if 926 was here? And later on she came back, she said, this is 920, there is Navy base there called 926. I said, well, I had an uncle that was, I believe was in 926. So a couple of days later, here came a bunch of noise at the front entrance of the ward I was in. And there was him, Harold Barano, Buddy Brown, and two others that can't remember where they were from, but they were from downtown, but I can't remember their names. They were in the Navy.
And they came to see you?
They came to see me, and we had a ball. They had to call the MPs, and they'd quiet us down.
No.
We was having a good time.
That's cute. So how long was your recovery?
How long what?
Was your recovery
Was my recovery?
from the shrapnel?
I wasn't recovered. I was still passing out, and they didn't know why.
Oh, no.
Every now and then I'd just flake out. So when I left there, I left on the ship, and the PA system I played "I'll Be Seeing You" and dedicated to them boys in the Navy, Harold Barano and Buddy Brown. "I'll Be Seeing You." You remember that song?
Yeah.
And all the familiar places. They got mad at me. Later on, I heard about it because they all came back home and we celebrated. So then, I was on the ship. If I'm not mistaken, the ship's name was the USS Morton, but I couldn't swear to it. And I was evacuated from there to Frisco. And the first day I was in Frisco, the same way they do you in boot camp. There's somebody right there at the door, and they open the door for you to get out. We know where you're going,
Uh-huh.
to the hospital. And I stayed there and ate pretty good and had ice cream and all for a change. And then the doctor called me in, wanted to know a few things like you want to know. This and that, and he said, "Bernard, did you ever have any x-rays?" I said, "No, sir."
Was that at wasn't that at Pendleton?
Hmm?
Didn't that happen at Camp Pendleton?
No.
No? That was San Francisco, not Camp Pendleton?
No, it was Frisco. Then, about 3 days later, I put in for leave. Like I told you, 30 days, 10 days traveling time and as much time as I could get at home. And he told me, then he called me back in, he says, "I'm going to approve your leave because you just, you don't know what I know and you're going to deserve it."
What's that mean?
He broke out, he says, "I want to show you something." And he showed me some x-rays. And then these x-rays, it was me. And the bullet was up my spine, and that's what was causing me to flake out.
Oh my no.
And I didn't know it. All that time, I didn't know I had a bullet in me. They thought it was shrapnel.
Mhm.
So then, he says, it had to be a sniper. From where you were at, he said, and I'm gonna write it up as a sniper.
Where? Wow.
So then he let me give me my leave when I was going to the Charleston Naval Hospital. Come home for, like I told you, nothing but leave. And I stayed there. I got my knee operated on then. My cartilage broke. That was
There was one important thing to that, Barry, you left out of that story. In training, before you went to Okinawa, that's where you hurt your knee.
no. I hurt my knee at Guadalcanal
But
on
you-
maneuvers.
On maneuvers, correct?
Yeah.
Before the Okinawa.
Yeah, before Okinawa.
And if you had told them you hurt your knee,
They would have took me out of my outfit, and I didn't. I lied about it.
so you played,
know,
you played in
They
pain.
didn't have knee bands in them days. You had to have them damn wrappers. And I used to wrap my knee, but not nobody knowing about it, so I could stay with my outfit. I didn't want to leave 'em. I didn't even want to leave them when I was wounded. I was arguing with them when I got to Guam. I wanted to go back because I wanted to win some medals, and I never got a chance to do it. I got one though, Purple Heart, amongst the other ones. Thanks to you.
Not me. I didn't get them. You earned them.
No, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have them.
You earned them.
That's so sweet. And so let's go back, you were at Charleston Naval Hospital.
Yep. Nobody would think about trying to get the bullet out.
Oh.
But they wouldn't. They fixed my knee. So then after I got my knee fixed, got operated, only got to walking around again, I went to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. So there's a hospital there with some good doctors, they said, so I went down there. And none of them there would operate.
They were afraid to
Get
take
the
it out.
bullet.
They were afraid to take it out, right? They were afraid to do it. Barry.
Yeah, they were afraid to go in it.
Yeah.
Then they referred me to Philadelphia Naval Hospital. So there was another 30-day leave, 10 days traveling time, and I went to Omaha, Nebraska to visit some people. And then I left there, went on to Philadelphia, and they wouldn't. No doctors there.
Oh no.
So they give me another 30-day leave, 10 days traveling time, and I went back home and then reported back to Quantico, Virginia Naval Hospital. And I met a lieutenant commander doctor in the Navy, and he looked at it. He says, "I can get that bullet." I said, "You're the first one said you could get it. When you gonna start? Let's do it now." And he did. He got the bullet out. But he told me after he got the billet that if I lived a long time, you're gonna be hurting.